Good morning and welcome. I am Barbara Pianese, Latin America editor of the Banker magazine, and I'm here in Panama City at the annual meeting of the Inter-American Development Bank. And I'm here with Jose Antonio Ocampo, Minister of Finance for Colombia. Welcome, Jose Antonio.
Okay.
And I'd like to ask you, what do you think are the biggest economic challenges for Colombia? Just
Well, the biggest challenges for us are, you can say, the three imbalances that we have inherited and that are still in the process of being corrected. The first one is inflation, which is a worldwide phenomenon which has affected us. I think we probably peaked already, but we peaked a bit late because of several supply issues that we can talk about. The second is the fiscal deficit and that we also have to reduce in order to confidence to market, let's say, and to investors in our bonds. And the third is the current account deficit, because there was a boom of imports last year because of very high demand, and we have. But the three are being corrected. The last two very radically actually this year. For example, the current account will be fall from about 6% of gross domestic product of GDP to about 4% or less. In the case of the central government deficit, it will fall from 5.5% of GDP to 3.8%, which meets the fiscal rule that we have in Colombia. And in the case of inflation, I think we're already peaked, and I think some of the supply issues that have significantly affected inflation are starting to go in the right direction, and demand has been controlled. Because of the very, you can say, very strong increase in interest rates that were done by the central bank.
Okay, thank you. And the other question that I would like to ask you is about the banking sector. So I was reading that a number of banks have lowered the interest rates to kind of facilitate credit. So I just wanted to know about this initiative.
Well, the banking sector of Colombia is very sound. Actually, after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, I was asked about this. I said, well, apparently we have much better regulation and supervision of our banking system than the United States. And I think that's probably correct. So our banking system is actually quite sound. I mean, of course, we had two financial crises in the past that we learned how to do it. Okay, but it's very sound. We meet Basel III criteria for the whole financial system. And actually, the banks are overcapitalized in the case of Colombia, and the bank reserves were increased last year following the instructions of the Superintendency of Banks, basically because there was a lot of profits, and the Superintendency said, well, part of those profits, please keep them as reserves. And the only sector that showed a bit of risk was consumer credit. But again, that's controlled already, and the rate of growth of consumer credit is actually being reduced. This policy of lowering interest rate voluntarily by the banks and some regulation that we're going to issue probably this week is trying to reduce the interest rate for low income or for small firms. That's basically the objective of. So it's for credit cards up to a certain amount, for some of the credits, but basically for a small business and for lower, not necessarily low income consumers, but let's say middle income consumers.
Okay. And one last thing, what do you think is let's say, your main priority in terms of reform or general priority in economic policy?
Well, the government has certain structural reforms, which are basically social reform. I mean, I did my job, which is the tax reform, in order to finance those reforms, and that was done last year. But this year we're implementing the agrarian reform, basically to support land for landless campesinos.
Yeah.
The second is the health reform, which is already in Congress, subject to a debate on the structure, but not on the basic objective of reinforcing primary care, which is the basic objective of that reform. The pension reform we're going to present this week. It was done jointly, Minister of Labor with Minister of Finance. I think it's a very good reform, and the last is the labor reform. So the implementation of those reforms is obviously the priority of the government.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank
Okay.
you.